lovely people. Welcome back to another episode of us exploring the lore of the game. I thought there would be stars. We are here again with Jay, our marvelous founder, and me, the comms person, Florence. So today, I think we're going to do something a bit longer that will be eventually split into two podcasts. But basically, the angle of today's episode is uh, diving into the different species that populate the universe through the lens of Sully and Jeffrey's upbringing childhood. So I think we're going to begin with Sully because she's the main character. And to give you more of an broad outlook, Sully was brought up on a space station, whereas Jeffries grew up on a outer rim planet. So very two different scenarios. So for Sully, she would have met a lot of different species through her childhood, and even more through her job later on. But Jay, can you reintroduce the purpose of space stations in this universe first?
Well, as you'll find in a lot of sci-fi media, space stations are kind of just extensions of living on planets, but for people who, either can't afford to live planetside, or they need to be somewhere else for a job, or there's kind of like expanded living spaces. A lot of them are adapted from stations that were set up for specific purposes like scientific research or mining. Specifically, Sully comes from an old mining platform that was sort of converted to become more of just like a floating city in orbit around a planet that was otherwise uninhabitable.
Yes, because we saw in a previous blog post the different kind of bases people could live in if they didn't want to be bound to a planet. And yeah, so it was either a spillover for population or it had a specific purpose. So for Sully, it was a mining space station, right?
Yeah, she.
So what kind of crowd could she have met on that place, in that place?
Well, the great thing about growing up on a mining station is that you will meet all sorts of people. It's not like it's never going to be a high class place. You're never meeting the cream of society, but it's the kind of place where people go because they need a job, and everybody needs jobs, even in the space future. Space capitalism, unfortunately,
it's never ending.
Yeah, space capitalism, it's still a thing. I'm sorry. But there were, you'll get your sort of more trends in species for sort of like either kind of general dispositions or just even the part of the galaxy that the station is in. Primarily, she'd have met like 3 or 4 different species. The sort of the reptilian Tindarians, the crystalline Revangians, and the sloth-like Phanolines, because each of them have their own reasons for either widespread travel or going from mining, or sometimes there's just a fuck of a lot of them, and they'll end up anywhere.
So sorry if I butcher the pronunciation. Before the Tindarians, like what would bring them to that place to begin with?
Well, we've not really covered a lot of this recently, but Tindarians, just a brief kind of lowdown. They are basically big kind of dinosaur-like people that evolved on a very, very high gravity world. So by the standards of the rest of the galaxy, they're usually incredibly strong, which means that a Tindarian might naturally gravitate towards what other species might consider heavy industry, because they've got a natural advantage there. Like, for some people, pushing a huge cart full of like minerals that they've just dug out of a planet might be a back-breaking piece of labor. For a Tindarian, that's a lunch break.
Okay.
So that's
Because
what
I
I'm using
guess
them
they would have like reinforced bones or stuff like that, like
Yeah.
naturally. Okay. What about revengeance?
Revangians are slightly tragic because
Ah,
Revangians as a people
yeah.
were originally one of the sort of main species in the Galactic Federation that kind of predated humanity joining, sort of becoming a spacefaring species. And the reason that they're not that anymore is that during the war, when humanity went, hey, we want a bigger slice of the pie, and they said, no, wait your turn, and humanity went, I don't want to.
Mhm.
Humanity deploys sort of the final resort that you would have in a conflict like this, and they basically blew up the Revangians' home planet, resulting in the deaths.
Oh, that is this planet that like fueled the whole conflict.
That was the end of the conflict because the planet they blew
Oh,
up
the
the
end.
planet and everyone went, "Holy fuck!" No, but it's a very Manhattan Project moment where nobody was going to be crazy enough to actually do this. Oh God, they did it.
Okay,
And that
okay,
resulted in the deaths of billions of Revangians, which kind of upended their entire culture to making them very, very nomadic and no longer having a home. They kind of spread out everywhere.
Okay.
Like, they're all over the place.
And
And they're all pretty fucking pissed off at your average human.
yeah, they don't have any specifics that would make them gravitate towards mining stations.
Well, they grew up on a very hot planet, so they've got a natural tolerance for like heat and pressure. But beyond that,
Okay.
not really. It's mostly because most of them are looking for work because when the planet blew up, it kind of tanked their entire culture and economy.
Yes, I mean they're not homeless; they were planetless. So yeah, makes sense. Okay. What about the Fanalines?
Fanalines, yeah, Fanalines are a fun little one. I had a lot of fun coming up with them. They are kind of like sloth people, like bipedal sloths, but they're not as slow, and they tend to speak in very grand, verbose things, as their languages tend to be very heavy on metaphor and things. The reason that Fanalines would be you'd find them in a mining station is because a lot of Fanaline culture is based on this sort of great wanderlust. Like they come from a very interesting arrangement where they have two planets that are very, very close to each other and kind of work in this binary system. And they invented space travel before they invented the wheel.
Okay, because they needed to move from one planet to the other.
Because we're like, it's there, we're going.
Yes.
And Fanalines love to travel. They will be anywhere and everywhere. They are spread out so far across the galaxy, and like put a few drinks in one, and good luck getting them to shut up. Like it's your average Fanaline will wax philosophical and poetic on any subject, and they're usually a lot of fun to have around.
Okay, but why a mining station? Like, why would we find them there? Just because they love to travel?
Because why not? Because they will go anywhere, and you'll usually find them going everywhere and trying anything. They are so widespread that it's kind of hard not to meet one.
Okay. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, the Revengeance. They are crystal people, that's what you said?
Yes, crystalline people. They kind of are formed of a metamorphic rock. Very, if you saw one, it would be like looking a bit like at a person, a very, very thin person made of glass. That's kind of what it would look like.
But the movements would be seamless.
Yeah.
What movie is it? The Silver Surfer? Is it that kind of vibe?
Well, the second Fantastic Four movie? Not really. I'm thinking a bit more. I always kind of envision them as a bit more angular. Like, this might be a slightly deeper cut, but do you remember Disney's Hercules?
Yes.
Do you remember the end of that when there's all the Titans? And
yes.
There's the one made of ice.
Yeah.
Kind of that, but scaled massively down, looking less mean and sort of more glass-like rather than ice.
Okay. I mean, that would make for some interesting spacesuits.
It certainly would, and thankfully, that's not my area because that's why I employ artists. Because God, I can't draw that.
Because at some point, you were talking about gas people.
Yes,
Where are they?
Iodinians. They are
Ah,
sentient clouds of gas that communicate by creating literal electrical flashes between the molecules. It's fascinating, and that's how they talk to each other. The way they evolved on a very, very low pressure world. Think kind of like Jupiter. Like they basically evolved on a gas giant, and you've got life. But the way that they travel and survive in other environments, because if you put them in other environments, they're likely to just either be crushed or dissipate or whatever. Excuse me. They created these pressure suits that keep them at the right. For example, think of it like this. You know how if a human being goes into the vacuum of space, we kind of burst?
yes.
It's kind of like that. They're just wearing a suit to stop them doing that on planets.
Okay. Because actually, the common depiction that we have of humans into deep space is just freezing before
Yeah.
dissipating. So
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen to you in a vacuum. Don't ever do it. It's not an experience I can recommend.
yeah. So that last species you introduced, would Sully meet them? Like they're not on space stations, those ones.
They're less common. They tend not to travel quite as widely. She wouldn't have necessarily met them growing up, but probably met a few of them in her job working for Slagthor and Sons.
Okay.
Engine.
And what would you say her favorite species growing up would be? Like the one that she could meet on her space station.
I mean, as far as like favorite species, she probably wouldn't have one because she'd have grown up seeing all these people so like mixed together.
Mhm.
That she wouldn't necessarily like think of them in terms of species, but like people instead.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I mean. Like the friends that she would
Yeah,
have on the space station.
like she'd have grown up around Tindarian kids and Fanaline kids all the time. Probably not so much Revangian kids because there's a bit of like there's some racial prejudice there because humans were responsible for blowing up their planet.
Mhm.
So they tend to be like, don't socialize with the human kids. We don't like them.
Mm.
Which fair.
And so, looking at where she began, like she ended up as an engineer on a spaceship. So surely she did some kind of social ascension. So how did she manage that? How did
Pure.
she get the skills?
Oh, so how'd you get the skills? Well, that's the great thing. Growing up on a space station, you are in an entirely mechanical environment. So when something goes wrong or something needs changed, you can either call station management and wait ages for anything to get done, or you can just learn how to fucking fix it yourself. And Sully has always been very much of the, no, I'm gonna just fix it myself school things. And she's been doing that since she was a small kid. Like her dad was very much again of that mindset, and she grew up helping him and then kind of taking over, and just got so lost in mechanical engineering, just fixing and tuning up things. Her first job actually was with station management on her home station when she was 15. She basically was the one.
Yeah.
She was the kid that was crawling through the ducts and fixing the small issues because she was smaller than everyone else.
Okay. And I guess at some point she either like how do you say that, scouted and then like sent to his proper school to learn that craft.
Well, she did. Funny thing, she never actually went to a school. Like Sully doesn't actually have. She has a shitload of on-the-job experience. She doesn't have like specific formal training. Like she's picked up so much from everything. She's always been a fast learner. The way that she got into Slagthor was that she'd worked at the station management for a couple of years, and basically her engineering chief was talking to someone from the company and went, "Look, I've got this kid here, and she is wasted here. Like, I believe she has the skills and the talent to do so much better. Take her with you and basically apprentice her."
Okay.
And that's basically what happened. Yeah.
All right. So I think that's pretty much it. We've done a good 360 of Sully and Jeffrey's upbringing and the kind of species they could encounter.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit more of character development into like how they are and how like their reactions in the game will make a lot more sense for you if you know that bit of information.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, again, it was a pleasure as always, Jay. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.